I'm Melanie Swayze, a global real estate advisor with Gibson Sotheby's based in Metro Boston. I closely advise homebuyers and sellers of all stages of life, guiding them to intelligent, winning decisions.
I'm Derek Lumpkins, a real estate investor with a background in community organizing. I also enhance equity and inclusion initiatives at companies and organizations, and I guide leaders through executive coaching.
When we get together, we dive into the intersections of culture, class, mindset, and Black freedom.
Welcome to the Black Lining Forum,
a podcast about Black wealth, power, and land.
Derek,
hey. How's it going?
It's going well. Our intro had me dancing this morning.
Me too. That intro gets me going every time. Every time. I'm like, yes, we are getting ready for whatever we're going to talk about.
I also danced my way through my workout at the gym this morning. I just, it's spring. It feels like this is undeniable. The sun is out. I mean, stuff's budding on trees.
Well, especially being in Boston, where winter goes on for, 11 months.
I mean, it was for 2 days ago. We actually had snow early in the morning about 2 or 3 days ago.
I know. I looked out the window and I was like, get me out of here. I am ready to go. April snow is no fun. But connecting dance. So we started off dancing. So, it's one.
And we are dancing.
We're Black folks dancing. I mean, let's not play into the stereotypes, but we're Black folks dancing. And, let's connect it to some things that are going on.
So
because
stop.
Yeah. Okay.
This whole stereotype. I've just been thinking lately, I could weep. I'm so grateful that we can dance. I mean, I'm so grateful, like, we can dance as in we know how to dance.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can dance. Like, that's in us. I was also dancing through my boxing lesson a couple days ago. And I'm just like, there's rhythm, that there's something that we have retained that is an indication of our aliveness at all times under any circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fuck, I don't give a shit about stereotypes. We're alive. And this is one way we're alive, and that we've carried, I guess you can say, cultural knowledge, something like that. That's not quite rising to the level, but we've carried something over generations in spite of all. And that is astounding to me.
Yeah. And I was just joking, I have no problem with Black folks dancing.
No, I'm not confused about you. I'm just saying the concept even. It's like, let's actually say, wow, like, we dance, without effort. Okay.
We move, we enjoy. Yes. Yes.
We're also being essentialist, as if, like, inherently being Black means you can dance. But what I mean is the heritage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The heritage and the creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do need to connect this to some real world issues as well. So where I was going with this, and as you know, there's so much going on here in the US. The Republic is being dismantled. Where there are fears of a recession, if, not recession being realized, there's global fascism, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And this is what you see in the news. People being rounded up and, just disappeared. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget those people either. But then if you look on social media, so Instagram, TikTok, maybe Facebook, I haven't been on Facebook in, years. Black folks are dancing. They're line dancing. They're having a good old time. They're having brunch.
Yes.
And so, seeing these two things in the news and in social media, I was kind of like, well, you and I and our guest, Malia, who's coming back, we talk about these things that happen in the media all the time. But yet, our brothers and sisters are dancing. It's kind of like, are we, you and I, are we out of step with what's going on with Black America? Or, what's the discrepancy that's happening here? What's what's going on that, we're talking about this. I guess we're dancing behind the scenes. I know I dance behind the scenes, but what's going on? I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, again, I can weep because to me, it feels like literally in the last week, I'm seeing that just flooding into my Instagram feed, like these dense parties of Black bodies. Yeah. moving as if nothing else matters, nothing else is happening. You don't know when this event happened, when it's just like time is irrelevant. There are people hands on each other moving together seemingly without a care. And to me, that is wow, revolutionary, wow, subversive. And whatever it's doing to my nervous system, to see that coming into my feed is such a blessing. And so to me, it's like whoever or however the algorithm is promoting these right now is a response. I think it's an intelligent response, and I think it's an indication of where a lot of Black people, and I would say in a lot of ways Black women, are realizing, we can't go through whatever this thing is that's unfolding without rest and without leisure and without play, because we are always geared and ready and vigilant and pushing a forefront. And it's like, actually, this is so big. This is so big. Other people have to realize that everyone has to take responsibility. So I think it's a big deal that we're seeing just images of Black people a little bit leaning back and living.
Mm-hmm. Leaning back and two-stepping. And what it kind of says to me is that we're living, or at least these folks are living with no fear. Like there's a moment of reflection that's like, okay, you know what? These things are going on, but we have to leave space not to be afraid, to be constructive. And also symbolically, it's saying to the rest of the US, welcome to the party.
Yes. Ooh.
Because, it's been so easy for other populations in the US, specifically white America, to say, oh, that's happening on the other side of the tracks. That's happening over in that neighborhood. That's happening across the state line. And now it's like, welcome to the party, everybody. And speaking of which, I want to know where these places are. I mean, maybe they don't want the rest of the country to know, but how do I join this party? Because I see it on Instagram, but I don't know where to go. Like, where do I get my invite?
I'm like, that is Louisiana. I don't know. I just have a feeling from these. Yeah, some of them to me seem like they're from in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, these people know. They know, right? They know no matter what, this belongs to us. We have access. This together, and it's communal.
But I feel like there's got to be one of these happening in Dorchester or Mattapan. There's got to be a couple of these in the Bronx or Brooklyn or West Philly, North Philly. There's got to be, in somewhere in the South Side of Chicago. There's got to be them happening in other parts in the North as well. And I'm like, are we just not tapped in, or people just being like, okay, it's by word of mouth? Like, we got to get tapped into this because I want to go to one of these.
This is a Black Lining Forum, like, reach out. We're like, hey guys, can we come?
We'll bring the chips and soda.
Or we throw one.
Ooh. Okay. I like this idea. Well, if we're going to throw a party, we need more than 2 people. So let's bring in at least a third person.
Easy. All right. We are so delighted to bring back a friend who's now becoming a recurring guest on our podcast, Malia Lazu, who's an award-winning tenured strategist in diversity and inclusion, who has sparked deep economic development and investment in urban entrepreneurship for over 20 years. Her book, From Intention to Impact, is a guide on how to build equity in organizations. Malia, please join us.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. It's
Welcome
great
to the
to
party.
be with you guys again. Listen, I always want to be at a party that y'all are at. And I was listening to you guys talk in the intro, and I was thinking, as someone who has danced with Derek, Melony, you and I got to get down on the dance floor as well. But I can tell you that we do love to dance and we have a good time, and it is a blessing because we can do it. And not all Black people can, and some white folks can, and some Asians be killing the game. But a majority of us have it in our soul in a way that is a true blessing. And I think that is part of the evolution, right? Like, as you guys were talking, I just took some notes because, I was thinking about what you were saying. But, I think joy as resistance like has always been something, and I'm glad now we're talking about it, right? Like, because there was, there's always been juke joints and weekend family gatherings, right? I mean, like, even during slavery, right? These were our moments of respite, right? That we were allowed to have, and music, right? Dancing. Um, those are all things that probably are why we're standing here today, right? Like our forefathers probably got deep in that, right? Because I think it's important because it does some real tactical things. And
Yeah.
I want to name those for folks. But like the first is that it builds community, right? And how do you get through the hardest times? With community, right? Not with people in power, not with policy, right? But with the people who believe if one can eat, two can eat, right? And the people who will invite you to be that second person so you can eat, right? Like that's how we get through hard times. And I know we talk a lot about that when we're, talking just what are these communities. And so that's the first thing. But the second thing is that it helps you tap into the universe, right? Like we all know whether it's a rave or it's a line dance, right? Or just a good club night or a good house party, right? A good playlist. Like
Yeah.
there's something when you're dancing that's meditative, like one of my spiritual teachers talks about how meditation, right? Like this, like what we think about meditation is actually a very masculine energy way of doing it, right? And like the feminine energy, the Kundalini energy is dance, right? That's the meditation is the dance, right? And, anyone who's been to a good church or, a good dance party knows it gets you in a trance, right? And those trances are important, right? We can't downplay those out of body experiences. And so I think in that way it's medicine. Um, and as you said, Melanie, like rest, right? Like that's something that I think they didn't do in the last movement. And that's why so many of them are burned out and blah, 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 and blah, 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 right? Like that's the thing that we want to add. If our generation, if their generation added, sophisticated, nonviolent direct action, maybe our generation adds the rest.
Yeah.
So just
right? That sort of thing.
just for a point of clarification, when you say the last movement, you're not referring to the movement during the first Trump presidency, or are you?
Oh no, I'm referring to the last movement that really moved, right? I mean, I think everything since the I think the last international movement was probably apartheid that we actually moved something.
So then we're saying that we see that this is just a necessary part of the cycle around fighting for rights versus sort of an offshoot, like a what do you call it, a tangent of it.
Right. And I wonder if it's subconscious.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you think about other changes in time, right? I mean, you have the hippie movement, right? Which, you had like, right, the sexual liberation movement, right? You had things that brought joy, right? You had new kinds of music coming out, right? You had this disco, right? Right, it ends with disco, the ultimate party dance music, right? Like, Earth, Wind, and Fire, right? Like these are folks who are sort of coming out of that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it's a part of the cycle. And I also think that we're noticing it at this moment because A, we have language, but B, to Melanie's point, like when you choose this dude over as competent of a woman as Kamala Harris is, like, fuck y'all. Like I'm getting my nails done. Like, because I think and I think a lot of women in general, unfortunately, women of other races didn't have the solidarity that we had, but like we've all watched an inferior white man take a job that we were also up for, that we were way more qualified for. And, we watched them be buddies. Oh, dude, the golf was great, right? Like we watched that game. And so I think for us to see those numbers, and for Black women who are, let's be real, the core of any movement, especially within the Black community, the kind of the core of any movement, we're going to put on some boots, and we're going to put them on the ground, and we're going to grab our fan. Now, the last thing I want to say is these are happening in Boston. And I was just, stumbling around trying to learn boots on the ground with a bunch of Black and Latino sisters in Dorchester. We did this wellness night with Living Arts Boston, and so, and Dr. Lucy Lomas, and so many women came out, and we didn't do the boots on the ground, but it was love, and it was joy, and it was laughter. Like, one of the things I have been hearing so much, and it's a blanket, is Black woman laughter.
Mhm.
Like, it's a super, like, it's a healing balm. And so we need to get together, and we need to laugh together, and trying to learn this damn boots on the ground is a lot of laughter.
It's just funny. I'm like, this will show you how not plugged in I am. As sometimes Derek is like, Tony, you really don't pay attention to mainstream media, do you? I'm like, I don't know what boots on the ground is. I'm
But
taking
don't you have children?
no.
Oh, I was trying to give you a way out.
She's concerned. We could get dancing.
Well, and you know what, though, Derek? We have to take some responsibility, because we're part of the ecosystem here.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're not keeping Melanie hip, that's on us too.
I also
So
feel
I don't only want to blame you, but sis,
that's endearing, like me not being hip. Because also I don't feel the need to be hip in that way. So Derek,
no, and I love that. But there's some things that just get in on because they're fun.
Precisely. And I am inherently fun. So I'm not somebody who has to like know a dance, right? I also don't need alcohol whatsoever. You get me in the room. If I'm feeling the rhythm, it will be apparent. So it's fine. But can I say,
Wait, before you do, I just want to respond to Malia. I'm not taking on all the responsibility for keeping Melanie engaged, because I
I'm
try.
not saying on everything.
Right. And she's just like, oh, no, that's not me. I'm not doing that. And then she'll throw in child of immigrants. She'll throw in all kinds, Jamaican. She'll throw in all kinds of things, all kinds of barriers that I need to like circumnavigate. So like,
Also, how is she blaming her ancestors
she does
for not having fun with the Black things? Like, I don't understand if you were asking her to learn the waltz.
I'll let Melanie go on from there. Go on, Melanie. Sorry to interrupt you.
so, but some of the things that ring true for me and what you were saying, Malia, about the power of movement and collective movement, and how this is not incidental, and that how it probably is deeply subconscious and deeply in our DNA. And so is that movement itself was a subversive way to communicate, right? Whether you're talking about in the United States, in the Caribbean, in South America, think about capoeira, like there are all these movements where people were actually communicating messages to each other, both in sound, in songs and lyrics, and in the way their bodies moved and what they communicated, and they were ready to fight also, right? A lot of the movement had self-protection in it. And so that is not an accident. That is very much on my mind at all times. And so I think that there's something powerful to remember about the intelligence that we're carrying through these generations.
Absolutely. And the muscle memory, right? Like, just like we talk about the trauma that we carry in our bodies, which is real and generational, all those things, we also carry the muscle memory that has led us to survive, right? So like we're all here. So that means that our great, 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 like wherever that was, right? Like for me, it was a sugarcane plantation that my literal grandfather left, right? He was the one who got off the plantation, right? To come to New York City. Or it was a cotton field or a tobacco field or, what was ever coffee, whatever was happening in Brazil. Like those movements must have been in our ancestors, right? They were in our great, great, greats. And so they're in us. And that's why when you start moving,
Yeah.
right? Like when you also know your worth, right? Because the value of you saying, I'm learning something so I can whoop someone's ass. And not that you want to, right? I'm not saying that you said you want to, but what I heard you say was no one's whooping my ass. Like, or you gonna remember me, right? Like, I mean, like, and I'm gonna make sure because I'm worth it. I'm worth learning how to whoop your ass
That's
in a
right.
systemic way that gives me
I
the
work
best chance for success.
epigenetic. It's epigenetic intelligence carried through.
Yes.
Well, and I will say, I want to just say, when I watched the video, I rarely, again, as Derek knows, I don't actually take in a lot of the news visually. I listen to public radio. I'm that kind of nerd. And I don't therefore see a lot of imagery, videos or photos of what's happening in the news, to be honest. I mean, it really wasn't even until this past few months that I even regularly see images of this president. Just don't even look at him. It's not in my mind's eye. Okay. So that's very intentional on my part. I recently decided to watch one particular thing, and it was the video of this PhD student
Being snatched off the street.
I'm trying to remember her name. Her name has been in chance.
I know, and I always say it wrong, so I don't want to say it on the podcast.
In a second, because I do want to say her name. But to watch the video of her be approached by plainclothes officers, not identifying themselves, surrounding her, and just watching her body movement brought up so much rage and heartbreak to me. And I had to watch it over and over again. I had to bear witness to how her body actually, she was helpless. And she didn't, I can tell, feel like a sense of entitlement on this soil to actually command or demand something. She really pulled back. They're taking the phone out of her hand. She's pleading to them for their cooperation just to get some help. But she said to them, well, can I please call the cops? You know what I mean? And then that's when they say, we are the cops. So there's so much rage for so many reasons that brings up for me. And I just have to say, if that were me, it would not have looked like that. And so, there's not any way to avoid that. I just know that. So the question is, how do I move through an encounter like that, that is revolutionary, that is subversive, that also doesn't leave me dead?
Well, and
that's just real.
do you have that choice?
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes if your humanity is what you're going to stand on, and many people have, sometimes then your life can get right. I mean, sometimes you can be listening to them and your life can, right? Like, there's this really powerful piece that was written like a few decades ago, but I still think about it now. It was a bunch of academics from colleges in African countries, and they wrote this piece called Necropolitics, the politics of the walking dead. And they talked about people who don't have the choice of when they die, of when they because they're valueless in their society.
Wow.
And they talked about Gazans.
That's powerful.
They talked about Black Americans, right? They talked about us, right? And then I don't know if it was Sudan, I forget the, whatever was happening at the continent, but the fact that we were named in it, right? As part of, because at the end of the day, it's true. Yeah, for the most part, I live in Boston. We can pretty much walk around like feeling safe. But like, like you said, Melanie, like if all of a sudden someone comes up to you and says, well, they are the cops, like,
Or who doesn't
it's
think they are the cops, to be frank. So
right. You're either going to fight for your life
that's part of it.
and
Yeah.
might lose it,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to go with them.
Right.
Which could still end up with you not having your life, because
Right.
this is reminding me of Sandra Bland in Texas.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she vocally resisted,
Yeah.
but she still physically complied. And then what was it, 24, maybe 48, not more than 48 hours later, she was deceased.
Mhm.
It was only 48 hours. I mean, so many levels again to that too, because there are also stories about how, we don't know what happened to her. I mean, maybe she just took her life. And so all the layers, all the lies, yes. And there is something powerful too. I can't not think about the earlier version of the civil rights movement, as Ayanna Pressley, our U.S. representative for part of the Boston area, said at a recent.
Our congresswoman.
Yeah. I'm actually not in her district, but I definitely absolutely.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And yeah.
Wait, you're not boots on the ground, girl. We need to get you to Roxbury. You ain't got Ayanna.
I've been trying to get her to Roxbury for a long time. She knows this too.
All right. I'm trying to stay on one.
Anyway, that's going to be the next Black Lining Forum. But we're gonna...
for another, we can go into that in more detail. What was I saying?
I'm sorry. I just had to give you a little shtick.
No, I appreciate it. So, but what she was saying is that this is our moment in the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement continues, and this is our moment in it. So, when we look back in time and we're like, wow, what would we have done? Well, actually, we get to understand, we get to know and figure out what that is right now, because this is it. And so I can't not think about what we're describing about our physical person and joy in our bodies and connection to this intelligence, this intergenerational intelligence, and the way that people strategically went limp during civil rights protests.
And don't forget, they trained for that.
And so that's all I'm saying, is that to handle an encounter like that involves strategy and thought. So I'm not talking about reactivity that necessarily dials up violence, but it is strategy, so that it is very obvious to anybody recording what they are doing, and that they have to acknowledge what they are doing. They can't just do their program. They're going to have to acknowledge. They're going to actually have to show what they're doing.
Well,
Right?
and you see that with the people who know their rights, right? Like that attorney that was just stopped at the airport, right? Like, and that's what's like, if you remember back in the 90s, we were all doing the Know Your Rights campaign, driving while black, right? Like blah, 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 which was the response to the war on drugs, right? And all the policing.
So I just want to pull together some threads here
Thank you.
from previous episodes and from this conversation, because let's talk about movement and dance, and now we're getting into the message. We're starting to talk a little bit more about that. And so earlier, when we were talking about some of the earlier forms of dance and movement, I was thinking of ring shouts. So things that enslaved people did on plantations to really toss out some of their frustrations they had. They would shout into a pot as they were dancing around it.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know very much about it. I have very cursory knowledge, but they would do ring shouts, and I can look that up a little bit more and send you some links later. But I'm also thinking that we are the children of hip hop. And so when we're talking about movement, so something that Malia, you said earlier around, the hippies and the 60s, and then my mind kept going up to the 70s and the 80s. So we're, now getting into the age of hip hop. We had the music, we were doing, people were getting into breakdancing and there were different forms of movement. Capoeira also sort of ties into that as well. But then, of course, there's the message. Oh, and then also, Malia, you were talking about how meditation was more masculine and then movement was more feminine. And I feel like hip hop is often thought about as being very masculine, but there are tons of female MCs as well. So, all these ideas are floating in my head. So I kind of want to like pull them in a little bit more, because as we talk about, we're now beginning to transition from movement into message. And Melanie, you're talking about how we need to think about how you're thinking about how your interactions with those ICE officers might have gone differently. And so it's like, as a child of hip hop, where the message has always been more about fighting the power and resistance and being smart, but you're still going to come up against some of the repressive forces of the state. Like, where do we begin to think about how that message and those movements begin to evolve into something new, into something that is actually for this particular moment where the state, it's not just individual actors, but the state is really beginning to clamp down. And then how does the movement evolve from there? Just like hip hop evolved out of something else, how does this movement turn into something in the future? So just want to throw those up.
So I love that. I want to throw out, because I think it gets back to the joy, is I think a really good model for this moment is Kendrick Lamar.
I was blasting him all morning.
And dude, this Luther video, when I tell you this Luther video has me wanting to go back to high school and be in love and sit at the little diner and hold hand. Well, I don't want to go back to high school. I want to have what I have now, but go back to where you were open to be in love like that. And you weren't like, like when you were just like innocently like, oh, let's just look at each other and like laugh. And oh my God, that Luther video. Oh,
well, you don't have the video.
Okay, now this is something, hold on. Next Black Lightning Forum, I am going to give you this assignment because you do like Kendrick.
Yes.
Please watch this Luther video. I have had it on repeat.
I will easily do that.
I'll also put the link in the show notes too.
And I actually Luther on repeat also, but I don't.
Yes. No, and the video, the visuals that he gives you for the video, like, are just heart expanding. Like they have you want to be in love again. Like that's so definitely. And SZA looks amazing. Like it's just it's good on so many levels. But so he's in the middle of this. Let's go back, right? So when he was in the middle of the Drake beef, right? And what does he do? He throws this Juneteenth party where he brings all the gangs from LA together, right? And he puts them on a stage. And so you have, I don't know all the, but you have Crips and Bloods and, blah blahs and blah blahs, right? Like coming together on stage. And like, these are real folks, right? Like these aren't actors playing, right? Like these are folks who are in these streets. And he brings them on stage and he brings unity, right? Like, and he talks about it, right? This is the first time this has happened, like, right? Like, while everyone's calling Drake a PDF file, right? Like, so then let's fast forward. He's in the Super Bowl. Trump is in the audience. And he proceeds to do his show. Right? He obviously did not change a thing. Maybe even gave Samuel L. Jackson some more lines, right? Like, but it was like, we gonna be blackity, blackity, black, unapologetically wonderful. Our women are not going to be exploited, right? Like women dressed, SZA looking great, dancers fabulous, video game, right? Like well choreographed. And it's just going to be blackity, black joy. And so I think like when we think about what should the culture of the movement look like, right? Which is the music we choose, the chants we choose, right? Like, like I think that's important. And we also want to remember that there's always been like, we talk about nonviolence because it won out, right? But like, it won out because it was the night, right? They were like, we're going to choose this, right? Like, as King said, you want to fight them with guns? Great. Who do we buy the guns from? Right? Like, so, but at the end of the day, we should have all of those things, right? We should have whoever, and I'm sure we do. I'm just too old to know, like whoever is today's, what's that sister's name? Derek, I'm looking at you but watch Melanie know the answer. The one, crocodile scar. Oh God, I'm so old. Doechii.
I was gonna say Doechii. I'm like, but I don't know anything crocodile related to Doechii.
Yeah, no, because her album, and then
Oh, really? She's like
she has an
new.
alligator or crocodile or something.
Oh,
on it.
okay.
Anyway,
Okay. Doechii.
I love all her stuff right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, but we should have people reminding us that even Gandhi said a violent response is better than no response at all. Right? The founder of nonviolence said
What
this.
is Doechii's what I associate her with is like talking about anxiety. So that shows my limited awareness.
No, but I was just trying to think of like who are like the dope, like folks who have stories to tell, right?
Right.
Who are like empowering Black women, Black
Yeah.
people, like, and I think Doechii is definitely one of them. But you know who else I think very mainstream? Like Cardi B's got some edge to her. I mean, her interviewing Bernie, like she definitely has something to say. And I think she doesn't know yet how to bring it into music. And like maybe, I don't know if she again, like I'm too old to know such things. But I mean, I loved WAP, right? Like I felt like WAP in certain ways is like the evolution, right, of the women's sexual movement. I mean, like, unfortunately, like, when you look at the statistics with 69% of all women, including lesbians, to not be sexually satisfied. Like, wet ass pussy is not something we're walking around with, but like, it is a beautiful, like, we should be talking about it, right? We should be.
Second time you've mentioned this on our podcast.
Because I think this is part of the reason. Like, how can we be magic when we're not even you know what I mean? Like, like women. Anyway, we don't have to get into the whole goddess energy thing again. But I do think that is a part of the evolution. Like, I think, Megan, Cardi, when Beyonce was calling herself a feminist, like, I think there is something there, I mean, if hoochie daddies can do a little better, like because I think like right now it's very femme, right? And like, how do we make it women, all women, like.
Yeah.
So let me
Thank you, Derek.
bring this back a little bit more because I'm remembering something, Malia, you said, I think in the last podcast, you said our freedom will not come from an institution. And so I've been marinating on that ever since. And I'm beginning to move to the point where it's not just that our freedom will not come from institutions, but our freedom and liberation will come from the streets. Like, I'm really, really feeling that a whole lot more. So bringing it back to music and dance, if this is where the resistance begins, if this is how the resistance takes its initial shape and form and style, it's definitely not going to come from these law firms. It's definitely not going to come from these universities. It's not coming from the banks. It's not coming from Wall Street. It's not coming from all these places. The breaks are not there. The breaks are the people. The breaks are the people who are just like, yeah, we just ain't buying this. We're not doing this. And I'm just curious to see how far this spreads. We started talking about, Black folks are dancing. Some Asian folks are killing it. Some white folks are dancing. I'm sure the Latinos are doing this
Always
as well.
dance. I mean, Bad Bunny lets you know where the Latinos, or at least his purview, was out with this last album he just put out.
Right. So I'm curious to see how these all merge. Like, how do we dance together? Like, where does, and we were talking last time about the middle class, but this sounds like it's going to be more of the working class that's going to be leading this revolution.
Well, I think they're going to be, I think the working class is the drumbeat, right? Like, Melony, you were talking about don't let you have a good beat, right? Like, no alcohol necessary. You will be getting it in, right? Like, I think that is working class movements, right? The working class solutions, right? That are going to come as they figure out how to live, right? I think like what's important for the middle class and for, folks who have the pleasure to have these conversations that we have at Black Line Forum, right? Like, is for us to remember that is our heartbeat, right? That what the working class folks are doing. So like, if it is boots on the ground, then it's boots on the ground. And then that's what we should be doing, right? And we shouldn't be talking about, well, how do we get more people into vice presidency, right? Like we should be talking about how do we do more, like you guys were talking about, Black Lighting Forum doing a joy events, right? How do we all do joy events, right? How do we bring each other together? I mean, I think one of the, one of the things about your questions, Derek, that's so important is that they're mirrors, right? They're not actually windows. And I think like some questions are windows, right? Their answers are outside, right? You look outside and you're like, oh yeah, this plant needs more water, right? Whatever it might be, right? What's happening to my plant? Oh, it's too much sun. But I think some questions are mirrors that when we ask them, we have to say, okay, what am I willing to go to and what am I willing to do? So like you talking about bringing folks together, like that's something that you do really well, right? Like that's something that, like you and Melanie could do. Not that you then have to do it all the time and now it becomes, it's the solution, but just one day of folks coming together to feel good. I mean, you know, I know, Derek, the parties that I've been at. I mean, you were around my house, just the other day, and we were talking about what I bought at your parties, right? Like these are artists I'm still in relationship with when I'm doing events, right? I'm in relationship with them. So in certain ways, like, I mean, I just gave some of them money, right? The other, like, because of that one party, I now have a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, I don't buy bags, I buy art. Like, and now I have a wonderful place to spend my bag money, right? I have all these wonderful artists to spend my art money on. And I think like, how does it come together? Like we start making it together, and that's something that I've been really challenging myself with because for me, right? Like I feel like, I've been working in corporate America for a lot of years now, right? Like I can't just, say like, oh, I just got here, right? Like, for years, whether it was I was at the bank or they were my clients, right? Like, and so I have a lot of thoughts right now about what we should be doing and about like wanting to do stuff. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, well, I'm not really in the game anymore, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, well, if no one's doing what you want to do, why don't you just try it, right? Like we're not just waking up from a coma, right? Like we understand landscape and what's happening. And if we think this might be a good idea, then rather than just say, well, there's leaders and, I'm more of an auntie, so let me just support, I will do that too. Like when the young people are doing something that I'm down for, they have all my support and I show up. And I like showed up for the rally on April 5th. But like, I think I'm trying, like, I think we all need to give ourselves permission to lead right now in as small or as, just because you decide to lead in a small way doesn't mean you all of a sudden have to lead in a big way, right? So like, if you're like, I think right now, like, I just want to help people come together and learn these new dances. We want to find more Melanies and get them hip to the revolutionary culture. And so not everything Melanie, right? Like, but just,
Well, I am anti-revolutionary and clueless and not plugged into the culture.
you are not anti-revolutionary, but that's why we got to let you know. I'm like, what I'm saying is I'm not going to tell you about, the new television show, but like the Kendrick SZA, right? Like the Luther video, like just, boots on the ground, making sure you got a couple of Black joy things for your own medicine, right? For your own ritual.
Everything. I want to say, I can't have this conversation without thinking about like the broad spectrum, the broad sweep of turning that's happening right now. And I do have this imagery, like you described just now, small movements, like incremental actions. I think of that as experimentation, but I also think about that as seeding. And I'm thinking about a big part of what this era, this version, this period of the movement is more in the ground, more nurturing in the ground, more subterranean, more communicating through nodes that are not that visible. And I think that is intimate and powerful and truly actually revolutionary. So we are being mycelium, we are being mushrooms,
And we're going back to all the tools we've had.
Mhm.
Look how much we've inherited that we can now.
Because that we stopped using. I mean, when they stopped doing, like, what we want to remember is after the Martin Luther King civil rights movement, and I talk about this in my book, From Intention to Impact, there were what I call social justice clawbacks, right? Like Reagan, Nixon too, but like I mean, how LBJ didn't want to do it, right? He just did it. But was to take away, just like the lost cause, right? After the Civil War, it was like, fuck this history, fuck the Reconstruction, right? Like we're going back to the lost cause, right? Like, daughters of the civil rights or Civil War, whatever, right? Like that's what happened. And unfortunately, it was really effective and it kind of destroyed the left, right? So we actually don't have the tools. And that's why I think what you're seeing is like voting and protest, right? And protests were only used in the civil rights movement when we were in the middle of a negotiation, right? We had a policy that we were pushing for. We were going to break this segregation law. And because the law was unjust, right, we were going to do that. So that became, right, like I mean, again, these marches, that wasn't the biggest thing we were doing, right? Like we were going to golf courses, right? Like the brothers and the sisters, well, I don't think the sisters were allowed, but the brothers that wanted to play golf were like, okay, we going to desegregate the golf courses, right? Swimmers were like, we got pools, right? It was this very decentralized thing where we all did our little bit, right? So like, we were like, I like this bit of it, so I'm going to bring humanity into this. And unfortunately, with us losing so many, with us losing that history, which is why as an auntie, I feel like I need to bring back the organizing training, because that's how, I learned from these elders, right? I learned from Diane Nash, right? I learned from Ivanhoe Donaldson. I mean, I had to apologize to C.T. Vivian because I got real young and uppity with him and was like, well, y'all didn't fix the problem, and I had to be checked, right? Like I was in these interactions with the elders who were doing it, who allowed me to learn and explore, but also get checked, right? And I think now, not that fifis aren't important, but like, if I got to censor your fifis, we ain't going to jail together. You know what I mean? Like, I can't trust you enough to come to jail with me. Right? Because once we're in jail, we're all going to do it together. And then we're going to survive jail, right? Like, and so I think that, there's this, if we wanted the movement that we're talking about right now, right, actually takes small pockets of hundreds to thousands of people to say, I trust you enough to go to jail with you, right? Like now, I don't know if jail is the thing that we would do right now, right? Because of the courts were a lot more friendly back then than they are now. But whatever that is, it's as much of a sacrifice as jail. Right? It's as much of a sacrifice. And so, if all of a sudden, like, everyone has to, and I'm not saying being trauma informed is not important, right? But I think when we look at these actions and what we have to do, we actually have to be in love with our freedom in certain ways more than a lot of things.
Yes. There's so much here. I feel like now we're getting to the heart of what I think I want to be in conversation about, which is how do we learn together? And how can this podcast be a way that we learn some things like the tactics? It could be
Let's do an organizing training. I'll do it. I'll host it.
I like that. And so,
and you can invite folks, or we can just do it and then you can share it with your folks.
Yeah. I think that would be really powerful. It's a moment of learning, but I also think it's a moment of really understanding solidarity in a refreshed way. When you talked about one of the major movements that moved something, you talked about apartheid, right? You talked about protesting apartheid in South Africa. And so, so there's something powerful for me.
And we've always had that. I just want to point out, right, that like Pan-Africanism, King went to Europe, right? He went to India, and he actually talks about how he goes to India and these dudes are like, oh yeah, he's from the untouchables of America.
Right.
And like at first he was like, wait a second, I'm not that. And then he was like, oh no, wait, I am that.
I think that's part of what's changing. Who's coming out to protest? People are getting it that, oh, we're connected.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the point around taking small leadership moments, making small leadership movements, it reminds me of something that our friend Gibran Rivera in Boston was saying around when you work with people and you know you're trying to make small incremental changes, don't think about this as the concept of the Trojan horse, where like you and a bunch of people all try to like rush in through a door that's too small for you to fit. Think of this more as like the Trojan mouse, where you go in on your own and you tactically begin to nibble away at the edges. I mean, we're all from Boston, so we know about mice and stuff. But you tactically nibble away at the edges, and those little nibbles here and there by a bunch of mice all over the place begin to affect change. It begins to get noticed and affects change in a different way. But if it's done in a way that is sort of strategic, coordinated, and directed, it can make longer term structural changes. So I think that's what I was drawing from the earlier parts of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, we didn't say the name of the Turkish PhD student who was disappeared. Her name is Rumeysha Öztürk. And
Rumeysha, so that's how you pronounce it, Rumeysha.
I think her
Okay.
pronounce it, I think, is Rumeysha Öztürk. And there are so many.
Bring her home. Bring her home.
Not noticed because of where it happened near the Tufts University campus here in daylight, and we were all stunned. But that is happening continuously around the country right now, and not always to someone who has such a profile that's can get the news. And so I can't underscore how I don't take for granted that much about safety. In the streets and in our institutions, like all of these are in question right now. They're all being clawed back. So what we have is us on the streets. We're all on the streets. Middle class people too are targets. So we're all on the streets. And how do we band together in a way that is?
How do we dance to the same drum?
There's this pulse connecting among.
Right. I think we want to be careful to not centralize as we're talking about solidarity. That's right. And I think that's a really again, in my book, I think the way we go is decentralized, but like you said, we're all heading in the same direction, right? So you do it in real estate. I do it, in women community, which is where I'm looking to focus, right? Again, this is why I'm always talking about pleasure now, right? Because I feel like this is part of what my service, what I want to give to women is their pleasure back, right? So we all do it in our different ways. And, I have some lefty aunties that are like, oh, wait, so your movement is orgasms? And I'm like, yeah, if you want to simplify it, yep, that's what I'm going to do for the night, and they're much more like, what's the policy? What's the da-da-da-da? And I get it. They're right, but I don't think I'm wrong, right? So I'm going to try this for a little bit, right? And I think that
policy is almost on hold right now.
Right. But it's not bad, right? I mean, we gotta have, I'm just not gonna do that right now. And we don't all have to be doing the same thing, right? And I don't have to yuck your yum, right? If your yum is this, just do it loving Black people, right? Whatever it is, it can be capitalism. Just try to love Black people while you're doing it and you'll innovate.
Well, ladies, we do need to stop here. We could keep going on. I feel like, we just get warmed up. We're getting warmed up, but we get hot.
Well, no, because you got to peel back the layers, right? You don't start hot with these conversations, because you got to, right? We got to see, what's hitting our heart today? It's jazz, it's jazz.
It is. And we will be dancing again. We started talking.
One of these at night when we have drinks.
Sure. I don't know how coherent we'll be.
No, we can't because of our time differences. Well, maybe we can record something before you head back.
Stateside, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still stateside. I'll be here a little bit longer. So, but we will be doing this dance again, for sure. Looking forward to it. And we have homework, Melanie. We have homework, so we got to study up on this homework.
I'm going to watch the Luther video.
Derek, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it because I don't generally watch videos, but I'm sure I've heard the song.
Oh, so look, now Melanie's a little cooler than Derek now because he doesn't even know if he's heard the song.
Cool moment.
So that's both of your homework. I love you both. I can't wait to see you again.
Same here.
Derek, let's plan a party, Derek.
All right, I'm down for that.
And also,
All right.
let's plan a training. I'll do it.
It'll be a party training.
I love that even better.
Okay.
Party with a purpose, like Tom Joyner used to say.
Yeah.
Yes. So, all right, for those of you who are watching and listening, thank you so much again for joining us. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and send any questions or comments. And we will see you on the next episode of the Black Lining Forum. Take care.